Good afternoon, everyone. The Legislative Affairs Subcommittee meeting has come to order. Please join me in a salute to the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call of the members. Councilor Guarino Sawaya.
Here.
Here. Councilor Jaramillo is absent. Councilor Kelly.
Here.
Here. Councilor Silvestri.
Here.
Here. And Chairman Argenzio.
Here.
Here. Quorum is present. First item on tonight's agenda is Council Order 24-017, an ordinance establishing a stabilization fund for drainage, stormwater, and culvert projects.
If any of the subcommittee members have any questions, I invited Mr. Viskey here tonight, so he's here to answer any questions you may have. Any comments from the subcommittee? Okay, hearing none. Members of the public.
Anthony Zambuto, 87 High Street. This is a kind of a no-brainer. I think we all know that we have these type of accounts for certain items, and just so happens we have a potential $40 million bill hanging over our head. God knows, it could be tomorrow or 5 years from now, but I think that this account is certainly warranted, and that's why I put it forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wishing to speak? Mr. Viskey, may I ask you a couple of questions? Thank you for coming tonight, Mr. Viskey. I just, the free cash at last council meeting, we distributed it amongst several accounts, and I believe we put in 55% into different accounts and then another $250,000. Is there money available in free cash that we could put 20% aside and still not affect these other accounts?
Let me answer that question in two ways. You're correct. Again, Richard Viskey, 281 Broadway, if I need to say who I am. We did get our free cash certified on the 15th of February for $3.66 million. Through city ordinance, we put 20% into our capital improvement stabilization. We put 15% into our general fund stabilization, and we put 10% into our affordable housing trust fund. All three of those are by city ordinance. The two other contributions that were made out of free cash were high school stabilization. We funded with 10% of the certified free cash, $366,000. And we have annually, since we've adopted the OPEB trust, the other post-employment benefits trust, we've been putting in a flat $250,000, not tied to a percentage, just $250,000. Those are not ordained. They've just been what we've been doing since we've adopted it. So of the $3.6 million, we have $1.4 million left, $1,399,000 to be exact. We have money to put into a stabilization account if there was a new fund adopted for stormwater repairs? Sure, we have $1.4 million left. Mm-hmm. Am I a little hesitant to put another 20% of free cash toward that? Yes, in some respects, because that free cash helps us at the end of the year when we have maybe utilities running high or we have some kind of extraordinary unforeseen event that we need to keep within the balanced budget for fiscal year 2024. So I think if there's consideration for another stabilization account, we may want to step back and kind of look at the overall policies for all the percentage distribution so that we ensure we, certainly don't want to spend more than 100%, but we don't want to earmark too much of it and leave us with not much flexibility to, again, prepare for extraordinary unforeseen events. So I think it's a noble, worthy cause to try to save money. It's always good. It helps our bond rate, and then it serves the city well. But I would be hesitant right here to speak up and say we should put 20% of that remaining balance in. I think maybe we should look a little bit more at the overall distribution of free cash as it comes in and what our policies are, and adjusted accordingly. The high school stabilization, again, I think at one point we were proposing up to 30% of free cash into that fund. So there are some big liabilities coming down the road with regard to the stabilization account for the high school, as well as potential stormwater issues. So I think the short answer is, I'm not prepared to say go forward with 20% at this point, but I do think the idea of having stabilization for stormwater, extraordinary unforeseen events that sits in the stabilization account is worthwhile to consider.
Thank you very much. So there is capacity, and there still would be free cash left over, even with another 20% allocation.
Well, if it's 20% of the certified amount,
Yes?
that's going to be $750,000 on 1.4 million. If it's 20% of 1.4 million, it's a little less. So it's if you're talking 20% of the original certified amount, it's going to really pretty much cut that $1.4 million by more than half, leaving me about $600,000 left. So again, I don't recommend that at this point, just because we're right at the the last quarter of the fiscal year when we may need to use this to cover some unforeseen extraordinary events. But I think that establishing a trust fund would be the good first step, and then maybe look at what percentages we allocate to all of our stabilizations funds, and make sure that we are prudent in having enough left over for other items that may come up.
Thank you very much. Any subcommittee members wish to speak? Councilor Silvestri.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Viskey, for coming up. So I guess your long answer that we're looking for, and I know you don't want to make a blatant no, but from what I'm hearing right now is not the best time for us to make this decision.
I think the decision to establish the fund is a good one. I would just be a little wary of earmarking 20% of the certified free cash to that, being that we did just distribute 5 different allocations to different trust funds. We usually come in for an appropriation for the Sandcastle Festival. We are running a little hot in our utility costs. So there's things coming up that would otherwise use this money. So I think establishing the fund would be good, and then maybe examining how we go forward, maybe for fiscal year 25, and apportionments of certified free cash in the future would probably be the best step.
Thank you.
Any other subcommittee members wishing to speak? Councilor Kelly.
Thank you. So then your recommendation would be to change this so that the 20% is out, and we just, is there a percentage that you feel comfortable with now, or not even designate a percentage at this point in time?
I mean, I wouldn't want to designate a percentage at this point in time, because, again, this will be the 5th stabilization fund that we're apportioning free cash to, and who's to say which one's more important than the other? I can certainly give you my decision, but I'd want to speak to the mayor of the city, and I certainly would welcome feedback from councilors. But again, if you have 5 trust funds and you put 20% in each, you're spending 100% of the fund. So obviously, we don't want to do that, but does it make sense to pull back on a capital improvement one, to fund the high school one, or fund the stormwater one? I think those are worthwhile discussions that would probably take some collaboration.
Councilor Green-Wyatt.
After listening to Mr. Viskey's input, I think we should amend this motion
To show a lower amount.
to set the stabilization fund, but not pick an amount at all. And do what you said, maybe 2025. Look into it in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, if this committee recommends to the mayor that we establish a stabilization account for stormwater, we can come forward with that language, establish the fund, and then maybe during either the budget process or sometime in 2025, look at trying to fund that in some manner that makes sense to everybody.
Would you be agreeable to form it at 10%? I mean, these figures can always change. We can always go back to the drawing board at some point and start moving percentages around if
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be a percentage. Like I said, the OPEB is a flat $250 every year. So, I mean, the policy, we try to set policy, and then I try to adhere to it. So whatever the policy is, I'd hate to keep changing it. But I think the first thing we do is just establish it. And then you got until the rest of the fiscal year. Our free cash will be certified until the end of the fiscal year, and then it resets, as you know, as of the close of the book. So there's no grave hurry to actually put a deposit in there, but I think the first step would be to establish the fund and create it.
So you want to offer an amendment to establish the fund with no particular, or 10%, 5%, or any? a flat-
Yes.
Just,
establish the fund for
Establish
now,
the fund.
and then as we work towards finding out what would be the best amount to put in there that the city can afford.
okay,
Sure, so the percentage is located in section 307020. If the committee were to vote to amend to strike that, that would remove the percentage, and you would just have the establishment clause in 307010.
okay. Madam Chair, please read that amendment, and we'll have a roll call.
On the amendment offered by Councilor Guarino Sawaya, that is to strike proposed section 3.07.020, transfers to the Drainage, Stormwater, and Culvert Stabilization Fund. Shall that particular section be stricken from the proposed ordinance? Councilor Guarino Sawaya?
Yes?
Yes. Councilor Jaramillo is absent. Councilor Kelly?
No.
No. Councilor Silvestri?
No.
No. And Chairman Argenzio?
So this is a vote to establish the fund with no particular,
This is just on the amendment.
to establish the fund, but striking the,
Yep, but not to establish. This is just to strike section 307020. It's just to strike that, leaving just the establishment. But then you would have to vote on these, if the amendment passes, then you would vote on it again.
yes.
Councilor Argenzio voting yes. The amendment fails in committee.
Madam Chair, please proceed.
Are you done? Is this staying in committee?
Mr. Chairman, if I might, thanks for the leeway. I certainly want to establish the fund. I think it's ludicrous to say nothing. I think 10% is a reasonable amount, and it's not going to constrain anything in the future. And if we want to put more later, it would be the time to do it. But I think to establish it with zero is kind of pointless. So I would ask that the committee would consider that. Thank you. 10%.
I agree with that.
I'd like to offer another amendment that the stabilization fund be established at 10%.
On an amendment offered by Chairman Argenzio, that proposed section 3.07.020 be amended by striking the word 20 and inserting in place thereof the word 10. Councilor Guarino Sawaya?
Yes?
Yes. Councilor Jaramillo is absent. Councilor Kelly?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Silvestri?
No.
No. And Chairman Argenzio?
Yes,
Yes, that amendment passes.
thank you. Yes, to report out favorably, please.
Chairman Argenzio now has a motion on the floor to report out the proposed the proposed ordinance regarding drainage, stormwater, and culvert stabilization fund as amended. Councilor Guarino Sawaya?
Yes?
Yes. Councilor Jaramillo is absent. Councilor Kelly?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Silvestri?
No.
No. And Chairman Argenzio?
Yes,
Yes, the proposed ordinance as amended will be forwarded to the full city council with a favorable recommendation.
okay, thank you.
Next matter is Council Order 24-057. This is a motion presented by Councilor Zambudo that the City Council approve the following special legislation. An act relative to city employment and candidacy in the offices of mayor, city councilor at large, ward councilor, and school committee of the city of Revere.
Any members wishing to speak? Councilor Silvestri.
Thank you. Mr. Chair. As a former employee and at-large counselor, I think it is very capable to hold integrity, hold the line, separate blurred lines, and to make a decision with a clear mind. To block someone's right to vote, to run for office, I think is against what our country stands for. And whether they're an employee of the city or not, I think majority of the time, not all the time, majority of the time, your most invested people are your city employees. And they understand the city business. And I don't think it wasn't an issue for myself. I don't think my integrity ever was brought to the line where I would need to, think I was doing something wrong. As a matter of fact, if someone came into my office during the day and brought up a council question, I'd ask them to leave and to come back at 5:30. I just think this is blocking someone's ability to run for office is something that we don't want to do, and I think this is the start. So I'm totally against this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Green-Deswaya.
Okay, I have a problem with this motion as well. I'm not okay with having to wait 2 years to get a city job. For example, somebody like me, I'm 57 years old, and I serve for 4 terms, which is 8 years, okay? By then, I'll be 65. I'll be 65. If I have to wait 2 more years, that will make me 67 years old to finish out my last 2 years that I would be able to be vested. Now, that's not fair, and it's not right. Perhaps this motion should be changed to maybe no 6-figure jobs. But as far as like not in employment in general, I don't think it's fair at all. It only affects a few of us counselors. It affects Juan, President Cogliandro, Ms. Kelly, and myself. Those are the only people that this will actually affect this year. Councilor Argenzio, Giannino, Haas, McKenna, Novoselsky, Silvestri, and Zambudo already have vested rights, as they've been either former employees or have been on the council for many years. Another problem that I see with this motion is we are technically not hired by the city, we are elected by the people. So I just can't see us we serve our city well being elected, and I just don't see that this would be fair, holding us back for 2 years to get a job with the city after we've served the people for up 10 years. And then my other problem with this motion is on section 2. You're talking about the mayor and being elected and being chosen to be the interim mayor. Well, how can that person run for actual mayor seat? And that's another issue that I have. If somebody's an interim mayor, well, guess what? He should be allowed to run for the mayoral seat. So that's another issue that I have. If you can help me out, Mrs. Zambudo, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, Counselor Kelly.
Thank you. I actually think that this would put people in a difficult position. I do think that there might be a conflict of interest here. I agree with Councilor Silvestri's point that we do not want to limit people from running from elected offices. At the same time, I just think will put people in difficult positions that they would not want to be in, to have to vote on maybe difficult issues on a Monday night and then report to work on a Tuesday morning might make things very uncomfortable for those individuals. So I'm looking at it at that point of view. I'm not really looking at it in terms of who is elected right now. I'm looking at it in terms of future people who are running and also employees of the city. And I do think it brings up some ethical, at least some ethical considerations. Thank you.
Anyone, other members wishing to speak? Members of the audience?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Anthony Zambuto, 87 High Street, obviously the maker of these pieces of legislation. So I just want to read a couple of points, and some of it will clarify a lot of the concerns here. First of all, this does not eliminate, does not restrict anybody from running for office, and I'll go into that. But just at start, Section 1 here, Lynn has a 2-year cooling off period. Salem has a 1-year cooling off period. I want to read a quote. The purpose of this cooling off period is to strengthen and support the existing conflict of interest laws and promotes unbiased hiring of employees. A cooling off period also provides a check on the power of the mayor, who is the appointing authority for most paid positions in the city. That's from Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll, Democrat, former mayor of Salem. That's her quote. And I know a lot of people respect her. So this stuff doesn't come without a lot of thought and a lot of reflection. The next section, Section 2, and it addresses what your concern was, Councilor Guarino Sawaya. I keep getting that confused. I'm going to have to get it better. Okay, the purpose of this section is to strengthen and support existing conflict of interest laws. The section does not prevent anyone from running for office. This ensures that employees not using city time, city resources, or certain privileges of their respective position for running for office. I would like to offer an amendment to the section shall not apply to any elected officials. A sitting mayor or a councilor would not need to vacate their duly elected seat to run for office. Section 3, this section will prevent candidates from running for multiple offices in the event they win both seats. An example, what if a candidate for mayor also wins a ward councilor seat? A vacancy would be created in the office of the ward councilor, immediately triggering a special election in that ward. So those are the points. This is asking for employees to take a leave of absence after they are certified as candidates. It's not restricting anybody. There was a lot of talk about this was keeping people from running for office. It does no such thing. It does put some parameters in there, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other audience members wishing to speak?
Anthony Paziali, 51 Arcadia Street. I agree that, or I would like to see that you could only run for one office. I don't see how you could be a city councilor and on the school committee. I feel like that's a conflict of interest. As far as working for the city and running for office, I think Mark Silvestri is an exception to the rule. I think it opens itself up to big problems for the city, for the residents. I thought about this recently, as I am someone that's interested in running for office again. And I put in for a job at the Revere DPW, which I did get an interview, and I declined to go, and I decided to take a job at Woburn DPW because I felt like it was a conflict of interest for me to work for the city and run for city council had I got elected. I don't see how I could be of any use to Revere's DPW if I have to recuse myself every single time something that comes up in front of the council that has to do with them. I think Mark did a great job of separating his job from being a counselor, but down the road doesn't mean a mayor isn't going to hold it over someone's head and say, if you don't vote for this, you're out. And I'd like to say that that doesn't happen, and we'd all like to think that doesn't happen, but it does. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Silvestri.
Thank you for the leeway, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Chairman, I agree. Some people don't have a moral compass, right? But I also do know that there are stringent ethics laws in place by our state government that says it is legal to run for 2 offices, that says it is legal to work and run for office. The Ethics Commission of the state of Massachusetts says as long as you follow the law and do it right, then you're allowed to work it. And there's ethics boards, and they govern this. And I don't think it's our place to come in and twist that around and to re-govern the state's. We do that often in the city of Revere, and for some reason I can't figure out why we want to muddy the waters. We take the state's laws or policies, and then we twist them and turn them to fit what we feel as though is right for us. I think the state does a good job at holding the ethics and people to the Ethics Commission, so I don't see why we would have to add further policies to keep people, again, from running for office.
Thank you, Councilor. Sure. Councilor Kelly.
Thank you for the leeway. I guess I have a different opinion on that. I understand that the state does govern this, but I don't believe that that precludes us from putting in additional protections or cautionary measures that we see fit that pertain to our city as an individual municipality. Thank you.
Councilor Green-Deswire.
I agree with Counselor Kelly. I can't support this motion as a whole, but if it were broken down into 3 separate motions, I would probably be able to support it then. Part of it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Personally, I agree with Councilor Kelly. Present company accepted, and past councilors, councilors now, future mayors, past mayors. The mayor is the hiring, firing, and promoting authority. To come here on a Monday night and go head-to-head with the mayor over a certain issue that he may or she may be passionate about, I think that could put some people in a compromised position. Same thing with the school committee. If you're a school department employee and you work for the superintendent, going head-to-head with your boss on a Tuesday night and then coming in on Wednesday morning and working for that person, I think would be awkward. And the school committee has the say over who is hired for superintendent. So I agree with Councilor Swire. There are certain provisions of this that I would like to see changed, but I do not believe a public employee should be sitting on the city council or on the school committee working directly for the mayor. So if we want to break this down and maybe offer some amendments, I don't believe a person should be holding 2 offices. So I'm in agreement with that. As far as leave of absence, the reason I would be against the leave of absence is the same situation. The only person that can grant you a leave of absence is the mayor. So you could very well be in a position of asking for a leave of absence in order to run against a sitting mayor. And if you are a department head or another employee and you are granted a leave of absence, you know, that puts the city in a predicament. Who's taking your duties? Who's taking over your duties as you're taking 6 months off to run for office? So I think that would put the city in a predicament, and for the same reason I would support one side, I think asking the mayor or asking the superintendent of schools for a leave of absence would be an awkward situation.
If I might, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Thanks for the leeway. I don't want to do it back and
No,
forth.
it's a difficult situation. So.
It is. But it's interesting speaking from here and not there. I'm enjoying this. But I think if we pass the law, it will dictate to the mayor what he has to do. It's not if it's a state law, it's not saying, it's almost saying he has to grant the leave of absence. But I don't even think this is written mostly for department heads. It's written for all employees. And you know, it's reasonable to ask for a leave of absence. You know, after you're certified, not, you know, not that whole year. It's only after you're certified. So it's, whatever. Anyways, that's my point on it, and I understand where you're coming from also. Thank you.
Thank you. President Cogliandro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A little bit of history on when this motion actually first came up was right in the middle of an election where we had 9 people who were either sitting on as an appointment on a board or a member of the workforce in the city. And, you know, I just want to state for the record, I have seen Councilor Silvestri at work, and he has been 100% honest and ethical in his position. I just want to make sure that I reinforce that. Imagine if all 9 of those people won, and 9 city employees were sitting up here. Now, I can tell you I made a vote that the administration was not happy with, and some of us can attest, and all of a sudden we got people chomping at the bit to run against us, previous administrations putting people up against you. I can only imagine what would happen if you voted the wrong way as an employee. And this city is so much different than any city when it comes to politics. I will argue that until I am blue in the face. So yes, we do have to protect this city. We have to protect the council. We have to protect employees. We have to protect everybody until things really change around here. I'm in agreement with some of this, and I'm not with other parts of it. Thank you for the leeway.
Okay, and I just want to say that this discussion we're having is hypothetical. It has nothing to do with Councilor Silvestri or other councilors that have sat here. Nobody's casting aspersions on anyone's character. It's just a hypothetical discussion here of what could happen. So I just want to make that clear. Are there any amendments from the subcommittee that this could get complicated, but we have Ashley here.
Chairman, I could take some of the notes, and if you would like to sit down with me, we can work on maybe drafting something that's, if the committee wants to go that way, it's completely up to you.
Okay. Do you have an amendment that you would?
The amendment that I was thinking of was splitting it in 3. Do
Okay.
3 separate amendments. So the first one would be about city employees running for office. The second one would be about the 2 years. The third one would be about the open positions. All 3, all separate. Is it 3 or 4?
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. President Cogliandro.
Thank you for the leeway. I'm not technically on the subcommittee, but maybe we should table this for now until we can get the proper wording down, send it to, table it, and then schedule another meeting.
Because it looks like we're in agreement on some of this, but
Yeah,
not.
I definitely think this, this needs some work on the wording, so we make sure we get it right,
Okay. Motion to table?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Next item is Council Order 24-058, motion presented by Councilor Zambudo, that the City Council approve the following special legislation and act relative to the filling of vacancies in the office of Mayor of the City of Revere.
Any subcommittee members wishing to speak?
Can I have it explained a little bit more?
Sure. Would you be able to explain the, so I believe if, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, this would close the window if a mayor were to vacate his or her seat. Okay, please. Oh.
I have some notes that I had written out for each section that's listed within this proposed special act. So if we're looking at Section A, so this section will repeal the 2011 9-month time frame and revert back to a 6-month time frame. In 2011, the thought process of the city council was to try and save the city money on a special election in the event a ward councilor was a candidate. This 9-month rule was presented by former Councilor Penta. During the time it was passed, the idea sounded great, but in reality and practice, it left the city with so many questions on what exactly the city council president temporarily performing the duties of mayor could do, which bogged down the city and the city solicitor with opinions requests, ultimately costing the city in hours of lost time and labor in 2023. With a 6-month time frame, the city would have an acting mayor for at most approximately 4.5 months, July 1st to the first Tuesday of November at the regular election, and no less than 2 months for time needed to call and prepare for a special election in the off years. Situation example at a regular election. If a vacancy were to occur on July 3rd of 27, the council president would be called acting mayor. Upon the results of the November of 27 election, the mayor-elect would be immediately sworn in. Second situation example, for a special election. If a vacancy were to occur on February 4th of 26, a special election would need to be held. This takes about 2 to 3 months to prepare the special election once the clerk calls for the election, and the mayor would be immediately sworn in after the special election.
Any questions on Section A? No? Continue on. Thank you.
For Section B, there was so after drafting this, I believe there should be, the City Council, the Legislative Affairs Committee should look into doing an amendment. Please strike this section and insert in place thereof similar language to that, that's what's in the city's current charter. And that's the president will automatically be called acting mayor and will not be able to hire or appoint anyone during the brief time that there is an acting mayor while awaiting for a special election or a regular election. So instead of Section B, you could strike that and just go with what is currently existing in the charter, which is the city council president would serve as, would be called acting mayor. And then for subsection C, this section will ensure that the city of Revere is never without a duly sworn mayor for an extended period of time. Example, if this law was in place when Mayor Keefe won in November of 23, he would have been immediately sworn in as mayor instead of having an acting mayor for the remainder of that calendar year, for those months in November and December. And with the last section, this section would not require a preliminary election and a special election for mayor. Whether there are 11 candidates or 2 candidates, there would be no preliminary election. This section is in the existing language of the city's charter.
Okay, thank you. Did that clear that up for you?
Yes, thank you.
Any further comments? Yes, Councilor.
So from what you just read, I'm just a little confused by the last sentence there.
On subsection D,
Yeah,
so this is in that language is currently in the existing charter. So if there's a special election is needed to fill a vacancy in the office of mayor, there wouldn't be a preliminary election. Let's say if there's 11 candidates running.
Everyone makes it to the general?
Everyone makes the general everyone makes the special election ballot. That's in the existing charter.
okay,
Yeah, we just had that.
okay. So only during a special election? Okay.
Any further comments? President Cogliandro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just to clarify, through you, Mr. Chairman, to the clerk, it sounds like these changes are going to really shorten the amount of time that we can have an acting mayor. And I agree with this for one reason, which is an acting mayor is very limited in the duties they can perform. I also like the fact that we swear them in immediately. You know, when Mayor Keefe was elected, he still had to be the acting mayor until December 31st, which, I mean, it was kind of ridiculous. He's already doing the job, right? So I think these are good amendments, and I'm in favor of it. Thank you.
Councilor Kelly.
Thank you. So I'm just a little confused on section B. So is that whole paragraph coming out? Are we still, is the city council still holding a meeting to elect by a majority vote, or is that all coming out as well? It's all coming out. So then it will go back to the city council president will be acting mayor just up until the time of a special election? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Anthony Zambuto, 87 High Street. I think this one is a lot clearer and makes a lot more sense. It's not as complicated as the other one. I agree, and I'm glad that's left in committee. There's a lot more discussion that needs to be in that, and a lot more clarification as to, you know, some people had questioned the constitutionality and so forth of that, and there's a lot of case law that makes it legal and constitutional, but I'm happy that's in committee, but this is pretty much a no-brainer. We saw this in real time, and this is going to clear up what the problems were, and in this way, God forbid, we have to replace a mayor halfway or partway through. This sets up guidelines that'll never happen again. There'll never be an acting mayor for more than 4.5 months at the max. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what everybody intended. And God rest my dear friend Richard Penter's soul. We were trying to save money in those days, and we didn't think it through all the way to the end. But we saw it in real time. So, I mean, we saw what could happen. So that's what this is. And thank you.
Thank you.
Anthony Paziali, 51 Arcadia Street. Mr. Chairman, members of the board. It does create another issue when a city councilor takes over acting mayor, especially if they're a ward councilor. It leaves that ward without a councilor. I understand that there are 5 at-large councilors. I don't know if there's something that you could do to designate maybe one of the 5 at-large and say, you'll be taking over Ward 4. Or for example, we had a disaster, or not a disaster, but it was an issue when the acting mayor was gone out of Ward 4 and Councilor John Powers was gone for about 5 or 6 months due to health reasons. There was no ward councilor in 5, no ward councilor in 4. Again, I know there are 5 at large, but it might help out the residents to just deem somebody the go-to person, because everybody knows that the first we all call our ward councilors first. We don't usually call at-large. We call at-large if our ward councilor can't do something. Then we go to the next step. So if that's something you guys could look into, thanks.
What about a vice councilor?
Yeah, VC would be great. Call me anytime. 617-388-6370. There's the number.
If there's no further discussion, I think we can.
I think in answer to Vice Councilor Parziali, I think in that case you emphasize the councilor at large's phone numbers, because I never ask anybody what ward they're from when they're calling for help, and that's what we all do.
Okay.
I know that, and we can certainly handle any vacancy from a ward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So if we could move this to a roll call to act on it favorably.
Do you want to take up the amendment first?
Yes, that's a housekeeping issue, yeah.
On the amendment to section B, so we're going to, the proposal is to strike proposed section B and insert in place thereof the existing charter language. The president of the city council shall perform the duties of mayor until a new mayor is elected and sworn to the faithful discharge of his duties. The president of the city council shall be called acting mayor, and he shall possess the powers of mayor only in matters not admitting of delay. On that amendment, Counselor Guarino Sawaya?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Jaramillo is absent. Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Silvestri?
No.
No. And Chairman Argenzio?
Yes.
Yes, the amendment passes. On the special legislation as amended, Counselor Guarino Sawaya?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Jaramillo is absent. Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Silvestri?
No.
No. And Chairman Argenzio?
Yes.
Yes, the special legislation as amended will be forwarded to the full city council with a favorable recommendation.
Okay.
My computer went to sleep, hold on. And the last item on tonight's agenda, Council Order 24-093, motion presented by Councilor Zambudo, that the city council president be requested to direct all subcommittee chairs to limit deliberations at their subcommittee meetings to only members of the subcommittee and the participating public so as not to violate the open meeting law. When councilors who are not members of a subcommittee are allowed by a subcommittee chair to deliberate at subcommittee meetings, they are effectively creating a quorum of the city council as opposed to a quorum of the subcommittee. The appropriate time for a councilor to deliberate on a matter not within their subcommittee's jurisdiction is when a subcommittee report is given by a chair during a regular city council meeting.
We had asked City Solicitor Capizzi for an opinion, which he has rendered, and he has case law to back it up. I believe this motion now becomes moot because we have a clear indication of the rules to follow. Madam Clerk, would you mind reading the opinion from Councilor Capizzi? You don't necessarily have to read the case law that backs it up, but if you could just read his opinion.
So this is the conclusion that City Solicitor Paul Capizzi came to after citing some case law. Having reached a quorum, deliberation with other councilors at subcommittee meetings violates the open meeting law requirement by failing to post a notice of a full city council meeting. It is advised that councilors who attend subcommittee meetings sit with the audience and participate from the podium as would be required of audience members and not deliberate by discussing with and asking questions of subcommittee members and/or participants such as department heads, employees, or citizens.
Thank you. So my recommendation would be to place this on file since we have a clear indication as to how we're supposed to move through the subcommittee process. In favor? Everyone in favor? Okay, thank you. Placed on file. Okay, the Legislative Affairs Subcommittee meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.